Have you ever noticed something strange about truly powerful people? One day they're everywhere, their opinions shape conversations. Their presence dominates every room they enter, and then, almost without warning, they disappear, they stop posting, they decline interviews, they become harder to reach, rumors begin to spread. People wonder whether they've lost influence, suffered a setback, or quietly faded into irrelevance. Most people interpret disappearance as weakness. They assume that if someone is no longer visible, they must no longer matter. But that assumption reveals something far more interesting about human psychology than it does about the person who disappeared. The average person believes power comes from being seen. The powerful understand that influence often comes from controlling when you are seen. This is one of the oldest strategies in history. Those who constantly expose themselves eventually reveal every strength, every weakness, every habit, and every intention. Once people can predict you, they can prepare for you, they can imitate you, they can resist you. Predictability is the silent enemy of power. Think about how people value what is rare. A scarce resource immediately appears more valuable than one available in unlimited supply. Human attention works the same way. Someone who is always present slowly becomes ordinary. Their words lose weight because people know another opinion is coming tomorrow. Another appearance, another explanation, another attempt to remain relevant. Scarcity creates anticipation. This is why silence often speaks louder than endless conversation. Many people become addicted to visibility. Every notification becomes proof of importance. Every compliment becomes emotional fuel. Without realizing it, they begin serving the audience instead of leading it. Their decisions become reactions to public opinion rather than expressions of independent thought. That is the moment power begins to slip away. Because real influence requires emotional independence, the strongest individuals are not controlled by the fear of being forgotten. They understand something most people never learn. If your identity depends on constant attention, then your audience owns you. The truly powerful refuse to become prisoners of public approval. History repeatedly demonstrates this pattern. Great military strategists rarely revealed every plan before acting. Skilled negotiators never entered discussions showing all their intentions. Wise rulers understood that uncertainty itself could become a strategic advantage. When people cannot fully predict your next move, they are forced to spend energy thinking about you instead of acting against you. Mystery changes the balance of power. Notice how your own mind reacts when someone unexpectedly disappears. At first you assume they're busy, then curiosity grows, questions begin to form. What are they doing? Why haven't they responded? Have they found something better? Your imagination starts filling the silence with possibilities. This is not manipulation. It is human nature. The mind dislikes unanswered questions. It seeks closure. When closure is unavailable, attention remains fixed on the mystery. Ironically, absence often creates more mental presence than constant exposure ever could. But strategic disappearance is not merely about creating curiosity. That is only the surface. The deeper purpose is protection. Power attracts attention. Attention attracts expectations. Expectations attract pressure. As your influence grows, people begin projecting their ambitions onto you. Some seek favors, others seek validation. Some admire you openly, while others quietly wait for you to fail. Every success increases the number of invisible observers evaluating your next move. Living continuously under that pressure slowly erodes judgment. You stop asking, what is the right decision? Instead, you ask, how will people react? That subtle shift is dangerous. Because once public opinion becomes your compass, you are no longer leading, you are following. Strategic disappearance interrupts this cycle. It creates distance between your identity and the noise surrounding you. Away from constant opinions, the mind begins recovering its clarity. You remember what you actually believe instead of what everyone expects you to believe. You regain perspective. This is why many high performers intentionally withdraw after major success, not because they have nothing left to offer, but because success itself can become distracting. Applause is pleasant, but it is also addictive. If you're not careful, you begin chasing applause instead of excellence. Powerful people recognize this trap early. They understand that today's victory can become tomorrow's limitation if it convinces you that you've already arrived. So they disappear, not to escape responsibility, to escape complacency. While everyone else assumes they're resting, they're studying. While others continue performing, they're observing. While competitors repeat yesterday's strategies, they're quietly building tomorrow's. This is another psychological advantage of disappearance. Distance increases perception. Imagine standing inches away from a painting. You notice individual brushstrokes but cannot understand the complete image. Step back several feet, and suddenly the entire composition becomes visible. Life works the same way. Constant activity often blinds us to larger patterns. Temporary withdrawal restores perspective. You begin noticing relationships, opportunities, risks, and weaknesses that were invisible while you remained trapped in endless motion. Many people fear solitude because they associate it with loneliness. Powerful people embrace solitude because they associate it with clarity. Some of the most important decisions are never made in crowded rooms. They're made during long walks. Quiet mornings, private reflection, moments when no one is demanding your attention. Those moments allow wisdom to emerge beneath the noise. And here's something even more important. Strategic disappearance also protects your emotional energy. Every interaction costs something. Every argument consumes attention. Every unnecessary explanation drains mental resources. Most people spend enormous amounts of energy proving themselves to individuals whose opinions will never truly matter. The powerful ask a different question: is this worthy of my attention? That single question changes everything. Because attention is the most valuable currency you possess. Money lost can be earned again. Reputation damaged can often be rebuilt. But attention wasted on trivial conflicts is time that can never be recovered. This is why disciplined people become increasingly selective about where they appear, what they discuss, and who gains access to them. Their disappearance is not arrogance, it is prioritization. They understand that protecting their focus is protecting their future. And perhaps this is the greatest misunderstanding of all. People assume disappearance means retreat. In reality, it often means preparation. The seed disappears beneath the soil before becoming the tree. The sculptor spends countless unseen hours before revealing the masterpiece. The strongest transformations happen beyond the audience's view. Never mistake silence for inactivity. Never mistake absence for weakness. And never assume that someone who has stepped away has stopped moving. Sometimes the quietest season is the one in which the greatest power is being built. Asterisk, asterisk, remember this. The people who chase attention are seen for a moment, but the people who master absence are remembered for a lifetime. Asterisk, asterisk, if strategic disappearance begins as a way to preserve clarity and protect your influence, there is another reason powerful people quietly step away, one that most observers never consider. Every increase in status brings with it a hidden war. It is a conflict that rarely announces itself. There are no dramatic headlines, no obvious battles, and often no visible enemies. Yet it is one of the most exhausting realities of power. The higher you rise, the fewer conflicts happen in public. They move behind closed doors into private conversations, subtle negotiations, shifting alliances, and psychological games. The battlefield changes. It becomes less about physical strength and more about perception, patience, and emotional discipline. Most people imagine that success solves problems. In reality, success simply changes the type of problems you face. When you have little influence, very few people pay attention to your decisions. But the moment your words begin affecting opportunities, reputations, or resources, people begin watching you differently. Some admire your accomplishments, others study your habits, a few quietly hope for your downfall because your success reminds them of their own limitations. Envy rarely introduces itself honestly. Very few people will openly admit they resent your progress. Instead, envy hides behind criticism, false concern, subtle discouragement, or carefully disguised competition. It smiles during your victories while privately waiting for your mistakes. This is why powerful individuals become increasingly cautious about who receives access to their thoughts. Not everyone asking questions is seeking understanding. Some are gathering information. Not everyone offering praise is offering loyalty. Some are simply positioning themselves close to influence. The inexperienced often mistake attention for friendship. The experienced understand that proximity to power attracts many different motives. Some people seek inspiration, others seek opportunity, and a few seek leverage. Learning to distinguish between these intentions requires distance. Constant visibility makes this nearly impossible because you're always reacting to the next conversation, the next request, the next expectation. But when you intentionally step back, patterns begin revealing themselves. Notice who reaches out only when they need something. Notice who remains supportive even when your visibility decreases. Notice who loses interest the moment your attention is unavailable. Absence has an extraordinary way of exposing people's true motivations. It removes the rewards that attracted them in the first place. Those who valued only your status quietly disappear. Those who valued your character remain. That lesson alone is worth temporary silence. But there is another invisible battle that powerful people understand, the battle against emotional reaction. Every influential person eventually encounters criticism, betrayal, rumors, and deliberate misunderstanding. Sometimes these attacks are deserved, often they are not, yet the instinctive response is almost always the same: to defend yourself immediately, to explain, to argue, to correct every false accusation, to prove everyone wrong. It feels satisfying in the moment. But psychologically, constant defense creates an unexpected consequence. The more you explain yourself, the more authority you surrender. Why? Because explanation often communicates dependence on approval. It tells people that your emotional state can be influenced by their opinions. Once people discover what provokes you, they gain an invisible form of control. Emotion becomes predictable. Predictability becomes vulnerability. Powerful individuals understand that not every accusation deserves a response. Not every misunderstanding deserves correction. Sometimes silence forces others to wrestle with their own assumptions. Sometimes time exposes the truth far more effectively than argument ever could. This requires enormous emotional discipline because the human ego desperately wants immediate justice. It wants recognition, it wants validation, but leadership often demands patience instead of satisfaction. Consider how many public conflicts grow larger simply because both sides refuse to stop reacting. Every response creates another response. Every explanation invites another accusation. Every emotional outburst extends the life of the conflict. Silence interrupts that cycle. It denies conflict the attention it needs to survive. Of course, strategic silence does not mean avoiding every challenge. There are moments when decisive action is necessary. There are times when clear communication protects trust and prevents greater harm. The wisdom lies in recognizing the difference. Ask yourself, is this conflict moving me toward my purpose? Or is it merely consuming my attention? That question separates disciplined minds from reactive ones. Powerful people understand another uncomfortable truth. Not everyone can accompany you as you continue growing. Growth changes relationships. People who felt comfortable when you doubted yourself may become uncomfortable when your confidence increases. Friends who celebrated your early success may struggle with your greater success. Even family members can unintentionally resist your transformation because it forces them to reconsider the roles they've always known. This resistance is rarely malicious. It is often fear. People seek familiarity. Your evolution challenges their expectations. That is why temporary disappearance often becomes necessary, not to reject people, but to create enough space for personal transformation without constant pressure to remain who everyone expects you to be. Every meaningful change requires a period of separation. The caterpillar cannot become a butterfly while remaining attached to the leaf. Transformation demands isolation before revelation. This principle extends beyond personal development. It applies to strategy itself. When competitors believe they understand your methods, they prepare defenses against them. When critics believe they can predict your responses, they design attacks accordingly. When everyone believes they know your next move, your options become increasingly limited. Stepping away disrupts those expectations. It creates uncertainty, and uncertainty shifts psychological advantage back into your hands. Instead of reacting to circumstances, you begin shaping them. Instead of constantly defending your position, you quietly strengthen it. Instead of fighting every battle, you choose only those that truly matter. That is how influence matures. Not through endless activity, but through disciplined restraint. Perhaps the greatest hidden battle, however, is not against rivals. It is against yourself. Success creates confidence. Enough success creates certainty. Too much certainty creates arrogance. Arrogance blinds perception. It convinces intelligent people that they no longer need feedback, reflection, or correction. That is often the beginning of decline. Strategic disappearance interrupts this dangerous progression. It creates room for honest self-examination. Away from applause, you ask difficult questions. Where am I becoming complacent? What weaknesses am I ignoring? What assumptions need challenging? What skills must I develop before the world forces me to? These questions rarely emerge during constant celebration. They emerge during quiet reflection. That is why powerful people periodically withdraw. Not because they fear competition, because they fear stagnation. They understand that their greatest enemy is often the version of themselves that believes growth is complete. The silent war is never truly about defeating others. It is about mastering perception, protecting focus, resisting emotional manipulation, and remaining a student even after becoming successful. Those who win this invisible battle rarely announce their victories. Their results speak long before they do. Asterisk, asterisk, remember this. The loudest battles are rarely the most important. The greatest victories are often won in silence, long before the world ever notices the outcome. Asterisk, asterisk, if strategic disappearance protects your clarity, and the silent war teaches you how to guard your mind against distraction and manipulation, then the final lesson reveals why the most powerful people rarely return as the same person who left. Their disappearance is not an escape, it is a period of reinvention. While the world assumes they have paused, they are quietly becoming someone the world has never encountered before. This is perhaps the greatest difference between ordinary ambition and extraordinary influence. Most people see success as a destination. Powerful people see it as a temporary stage in an endless process of evolution. The average person spends years building an identity and then spends the rest of life protecting it. They become attached to labels. They fear change because change threatens the image they worked so hard to create. But the truly influential understand a simple psychological truth. The identity that helped you reach one level of success may prevent you from reaching the next. Growth demands sacrifice. Sometimes the greatest sacrifice is not comfort or time. It is the version of yourself that no longer serves your future. This is why reinvention requires disappearance. You cannot fundamentally change while remaining trapped inside everyone's expectations. Every environment silently rewards consistency. Friends expect you to behave the same way. Colleagues expect the same opinions. Competitors expect the same strategies. Even your own mind begins repeating familiar patterns simply because they feel safe. Powerful people recognize this invisible prison. They understand that familiarity can become a form of captivity. The moment people believe they have completely figured you out, they stop respecting your capacity to surprise them. Predictability slowly erodes influence because it removes uncertainty, and uncertainty is one of the strongest psychological forces in human behavior. When people cannot predict your next move, they remain attentive. When they already know what you will do, their attention disappears. That is why the strongest individuals intentionally interrupt their own patterns, not because they enjoy instability, because they refuse to become prisoners of yesterday's success. Think about nature for a moment. Every season demands a different response. A tree does not resist winter by pretending it is still summer. It adapts. It sheds what it no longer needs. From the outside, it appears lifeless. To an impatient observer, it seems as though nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, invisible work continues. The roots deepen. Energy is preserved. Preparation quietly replaces performance. Then spring arrives, and what appeared to be decline is revealed as renewal. Human growth follows the same rhythm. The world often celebrates visible achievement while overlooking invisible preparation. Yet the invisible phase is usually where the greatest transformation occurs. This is why so many remarkable breakthroughs seem sudden. An entrepreneur appears to succeed overnight. An author publishes a best-selling book. A leader returns with extraordinary confidence. People call it luck because they never witnessed the years of private study, painful failure, disciplined practice, and relentless self-examination that happened while no one was paying attention. The comeback looks effortless only because the preparation remained hidden. Powerful people understand another truth that many overlook. Reinvention is not merely about learning new skills. It is about unlearning outdated beliefs. This is often much harder. Knowledge accumulates naturally. Wisdom requires letting go. Many intelligent people remain trapped because they continue solving today's problems with yesterday's assumptions. They become experts in methods that no longer fit the changing world. Their confidence becomes their limitation. The most adaptable individuals question themselves before the world forces them to. They ask uncomfortable questions. What if my greatest strength is becoming my greatest weakness? What habits once protected me but now hold me back? What beliefs have I accepted simply because they once worked? These questions are difficult because they challenge the ego. The ego loves certainty. Growth requires curiosity. And curiosity begins by admitting there is still more to learn. This is why periods of strategic disappearance become so valuable. Away from constant recognition, your identity becomes flexible again. You stop performing for an audience. You start learning for yourself. That shift changes everything because the purpose is no longer to appear impressive. The purpose becomes becoming more capable. Capability outlasts reputation. Reputation can be damaged overnight. Capability remains. No one can take away knowledge you've earned. No one can erase discipline you've developed. No one can steal the emotional control you've practiced in silence. These become permanent assets. Another reason powerful people return transformed is because time away allows them to observe the world without constantly participating in it. Observation creates insight. When you're always speaking, you miss what others reveal. When you're constantly acting, you fail to notice how the environment is changing. Stepping back sharpens perception. You begin recognizing emerging opportunities before others notice them. You identify patterns hidden beneath daily distractions. You understand people more clearly because you spend more time watching than reacting. The greatest strategists throughout history possessed this ability. They rarely rushed. They studied. They waited. They understood that timing often matters more than speed. An average decision made at the perfect moment can outperform a brilliant decision made too early. Patience is not passivity, it is disciplined timing. That is why reinvention is never rushed. The world encourages immediate results. Power rewards careful preparation. There is also an emotional transformation that occurs during meaningful periods of solitude. At first, silence feels uncomfortable. Without constant feedback, you begin confronting yourself, your fears, your insecurities, your unfinished ambitions. Many people escape this discomfort by returning to noise as quickly as possible. Powerful individuals remain. They understand that every uncomfortable conversation with themselves removes another layer of illusion. Eventually, something remarkable happens. External validation becomes less necessary. You stop measuring your value by applause. You begin measuring it by progress. That shift is liberating because now your confidence is no longer borrowed from other people's opinions. It comes from evidence, from discipline, from resilience, from promises you've kept to yourself. That confidence cannot easily be shaken. It remains steady whether people praise you or criticize you. This inner stability becomes one of the defining characteristics of genuine influence. People naturally trust those who do not desperately seek approval, not because they are perfect, because they are grounded. And when such individuals finally return after a season of quiet growth, something has changed. Their words carry greater weight. Their presence feels calmer. Their decisions become more deliberate. They no longer chase every opportunity because they understand that saying no protects the ability to say yes to what truly matters. Others may struggle to explain why they seem different, but the difference is simple. They did not spend their disappearance hiding from life. They spent it preparing for a larger one. So if you ever feel pressured to remain constantly visible, constantly available, or constantly proving your worth, remember that history rarely remembers those who were always present. It remembers those who knew when to withdraw, when to grow in silence, and when to return with a level of wisdom that made their previous version almost unrecognizable. Never fear disappearing for the right reasons. Fear remaining the same while the world continues to evolve. Because in the end, real power is not measured by how long people see you. It is measured by who you become while no one is watching. Asterisk asterisk, remember this, disappear to grow, return to transform, and let your evolution speak so loudly that your silence is never mistaken for weakness again. Asterisk asterisk.